everyone, and welcome to the NARSA weekly update for week commencing Monday, the 4th of October 2021. Yes, it's October already. Where is 2021 gone? Well, I know from early March to late May it was all a little bit blurry for most Gers fans, but even then, the year is going by incredibly fast. It's Gary here again, and firstly I'd like to wish a very happy Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp is broken day to everyone out there who uses those platforms. Personally, I'm a bit of a casual user of Facebook, almost non-existent on Instagram, although I do have an account. So the big inconvenience for me today was WhatsApp. I underappreciated my level of reliance on that app in terms of my connectedness to friends, family, NARSA colleagues, etc. So hopefully it was just a wee blip and everything is now all back up and running like normal. I know that WhatsApp has been working for me for a few hours now. It's about just before 7:30 p.m. on Monday evening. And I think we're all back to normal there. I'm not sure about Facebook and Instagram, but I assume they're all kind of connected and all came back up around about the same time. Well, anyway, enough of that. We had a bit of a topsy-turvy week with our loss in Prague, followed by our fine victory against Hibs, cementing our place at the top of the Scottish Premiership table. And as I've discussed for a wee while now, we're most definitely still not at the top of our game, but in terms of effort, invention, and all-round passion for the jersey, which is the three main areas that I'd mentioned last week as being lacking, I reckon Sunday against Hibs was as good as it's gotten for us this season, and a very welcome indicator of what is to come when we do have some key members of the squad back and fit and ready to play. Because right now we have first team, pretty much automatic or semi-automatic choice players out from the team. In central defence we've got Philip Hollander, in midfield Ryan Jack, and in attack Ryan Kent, and yet we're still at the top of the league. And when we have those folks back, I imagine we will be striking fear into the hearts of our opponents. I know that if it was any of our main rivals that had some key players that were out and they were still plugging away at the top, I would be a little bit disheartened by that. On to last week's games. We did indeed go on our travels to the racist capital of Europe and possibly the world, forgive my geography if I haven't got it right, and that was Prague, in a game that I explained last week was a mustn't lose, that's must not lose fixture, and unfortunately we just couldn't do enough in the game and went down to a 1-0 defeat to a set piece goal that I originally thought that Alan McGregor had saved, but on replay it was proven to be well over the line, to be very fair. I thought over the course of the first half we acquitted ourselves well and were more than a match for them, but in the second half we just seemed to huff and puff and not really create anything meaningful in terms of chances to get us something from the game. And in fact, had it not been for some resolute defending and the woodwork, we could have went down to a heavier scoreline, a heavier defeat. And the thing that makes this one a wee bit tougher to take is that I honestly didn't think that they were that great of a side. Losing Connor Goldson so late, not travelling with the squad, and having essentially what is in effect part of our second choice central defensive unit, and drafting in Calvin Bassey to help out alongside Liam Balogun created some moments of absolute calamity and panic at times in defence, almost comedic. And not to sound too cliche though, from a positive perspective, like some managers can do at times, but I really couldn't fault the team's efforts both collectively and individually. But that spark that I have been talking about for some time now is very evident for all to see, in terms of the team, the tactics and application of how the tactics in game are managed for this particular game. Is very obvious that we've just lost that spark, plain and simple, especially in Europe. Now we'll talk about the Hibs game in just a wee second here and how we managed to get or salvage some of that spark back. And I'm just worried about how we do get it back for Europe, as it's been on our back for some time now. My theory behind why the team are where they are right now is that we just didn't replenish our first team starting squad this close season, especially in the attacking positions. Yes, we added Fashion Sakala, but he, I don't think, would be an automatic first choice starter. He's more of a squad player for us right now anyway, and as you can see, he has an awful lot of development to do before he becomes a value add member of the first team. He did have the one shot in the first half that he did do well to create and use his own speed and control. And then the disallowed goal, of course, that he, I guess, forgot the offside rule at the time, and when he could have, really been more aware of what was happening around about him, taken a couple of steps back and then had the tap in. But those were the only decent things that he did in this game, and that's simply not anywhere near good enough for us from our front players. Of course, for anyone who isn't deaf, you'll also have heard the boos every single time Glenn Kamara touched the ball. Every single time. Way more audible than any of the other players. So he gets booed for being racially abused by one of the team members of their biggest rivals across the city. I don't get that one at all. Imagine that was Rangers and Celtic and how we would react. I'm not sure it would be the same. I get that the crowd was made up primarily of kids and their adult accompaniments too, of course, and maybe they don't know why they're booing, but they were. And someone instructed them to boo, and it was just Glenn Kamara that was getting it big time. Is that racism? To boo a player that you don't like? I don't think it is, but I also don't think that's what they were doing. The source of the booing came from racist behaviour in the very first place. Therefore, logic would tell you that any subsequent biased behaviour against that particular player has to, at the very least, have a racist inspiration and motivation behind it, I would venture a guess to say. That's what I think anyway. So all this culminates in him receiving a second and very, very soft yellow and ultimately red card to make our job even harder. And then he gets booed when he's walking off the pitch too, of course. Just incredible, disgusting behaviour from folks from that particular city. Then their club comes out and makes it sound like Rangers are cynically targeting kids, their kids, with their own form of abuse. You just could not make garbage like this up if you tried. Anyway, back to the football. All that to say, we have 0 points from 2 games now, and our job of qualifying for the knockout stages from this particular group is disappearing fast. If we don't take at least 4, but ideally 6 points from our next 2 games against Brøndby, we'll either have the Conference League spot to chase, which is what you get for third place in the group, or nothing to look forward to after Christmas in a European sense, which is somewhat depressing. Not an easy group, I know, appreciate and understand, but I just can't help but feel that if we had been firing on all cylinders, the results might have been slightly different, and we might even have been playing in a different European competition right now. The second game, as I mentioned previously, was the top-of-the-table clash at home to Hibs yesterday, where we ran out what I thought was comfortable 2-1 winners thanks to brilliant goals from Kemar Roof and Alfredo Morelos after Hibs had taken the early lead via, a somewhat utter junk defensive play by us again, leading to a cross coming in pretty much unchallenged from the right-hand side, and 3 Rangers defenders defending a zone or a particular area. It certainly wasn't a player, or maybe they were just having a wee blether, and they allowed their wee striker to take a step back and deftly header, not a very powerful header, past Alan McGregor in goal. Just another ridiculous goal to lose from our standpoint, and yet more video evidence, as if they needed it, for the management team to use when educating the players on what not to do in the future. There must be lots of that video footage already from this season. However, I was saying to my dad Ronnie after the game that these games invariably aren't actually as tough on reflection as they feel like they are in real time as we live it live. Real time they're stressful and a lot of the times not very enjoyable due to the scoreline being so tight, when we'd all prefer that to be proper daylight between us score-wise. And I think I've figured out why. So I've figured out that we didn't replenish the squad. So this is 2 figured out whys for this week. And I think that it's because our collective confidence in our defence has gradually eroded game by game, to the point that we're at right now, where we have a pretty good idea that if opponents get a breakaway, that they are going to stand a very good chance of scoring a goal. And because that's been proven that to be the case, and that's it's already happened a number of times this season. But when you see the goal notwithstanding, and I know everyone's come out and said it was against the run of play and stuff, and yes, okay, it was, but it was still very poor defending. But when you see after that how we defended as an entire team yesterday and got back to our passing game, which at times is just electric, there was really no danger to speak of. I don't recall Alan McGregor being troubled too much throughout the entire game. And replaying the game back in my head, I don't ever watch a game back afterwards, but replaying the main highlights and main moments that I can remember back in my head, we were simply just better than them all over the pitch, and every meaningful stat backs that up as well. A couple of major talking points, from the game, with the first one being before the game even kicked off, and our captain James Tavernier being dropped to the bench and replaced by Nathan Patterson. I thought Patterson started the game kind of nervy, but grew into it as the game progressed, and overall I thought he was terrific, and what an absolute gift for us as a club to have the two best right backs in Scotland. I really liked what Steven Gerrard said, incidentally, after he did his rousing lap of honour after the game, and that we've overused Tav over the years, and what he wants to be able to do now is up his quality contribution to the team and manage his game via managing his game time a little bit better to ensure that we get the best out of him, and maybe help him recuperate a little bit more, and maybe have a wee bit of a thought or think about what are happening in the games if he gets a chance to observe them rather than playing, something like that. And I imagine from a management team perspective that's not an easy thing to do, but it certainly does make sense. And if we can manage to keep both players happy and playing regularly, that's great for us and for Scottish football in general, of course, in the case of Nathan Patterson. The second was how fantastic and how similar both goals were, with world-class crosses coming in from the right and then the left. From the right, Nathan Patterson; from the left, Borna Barisic, for our strikers to be where they needed to be and do what they needed to do in dispatching the ball into the net. And just wonderful, fantastic goals. John Lundstrom, the Scouser, that was the revelation that I gave you last week, had another terrific game, and long may this vein of form continue for him. I'm so pleased for him because he's really, really doing well for the team, and just long may that continue. And the last thing I wanted to raise was the red card for that animal Ryan Porteous' wild lunge on Joe Aribo. I saw earlier today that Hibs have had the audacity to appeal the red card, which is just astonishing. I mean, from any angle, especially the one at the back, you can see that it's just assault, plain and simple. And I also saw some clowns mention the fact that since there was no contact made, therefore, how could it possibly be a red card? These idiots are completely missing the whole point. There was absolute intent to injure the player by going in wild, fast and high. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. Look at it from any angle. The fact that Aribo was lucky enough to escape injury because the thug mistimed it, that's not the point. It's the equivalent of Porteous running over to Aribo and swinging a right hook aimed at Aribo's jaw and completely missing it. Is that a red card? Of course it's a red card. So it's just no different. So Hibs are doing well as a club and as a team right now, and we knew we were going to get a game from them, which we did. But come on, Hibs, know your place, you clowns, and just let it go and walk away with any semblance of dignity that you might have had at the end of the game. He deserved at least a red, and I hope this appeal gets him more of a ban than whatever he actually gets from it. And I'm assuming it's a 3-game ban for a straight red card, if that's still the rule. Forgive me if it's not. Anyway, don't want to end the games on a negative. We played really, really well, thoroughly deserved 2-1. Great goals, lots and lots of positives, and the only main negative really being the assault, but the poor goal that we lost. Unfortunately, our next competitive fixture is yet... Well, it's not unfortunate that it's a top of the table clash, this time against Hibs Edinburgh rivals Hearts. The unfortunate part of it is that we are not playing it until a week on Saturday, October the 16th, with a 3 p.m. kick-off, which is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We can talk about that more next week, but a wee interesting tidbit about that particular game is that my family in Calgary are flying home next week and hoping to catch a few games when they're there, and they will be at this particular game. Yes, the Careys will be there, and I obviously wish them safe travels. there and back to Calgary with a suitcase full of my favourite chocolate and crisps, and more importantly that they're not a jinx to the team in any way for the Hearts game, and hopefully they get to see Brøndby and maybe St Mirren, but Brøndby I'm hopeful for sure. On to RTV for this week. As far as I could tell, we enjoyed another error-free weekend. Week in weekend. We never really hear much about it on the European games because they're all controlled through other service providers. But yeah, it seemed to be error-free as far as I can tell, which is a great thing. I know there was one issue prior to kick-off in Orange County, but a swift computer reboot solved that before kick-off and nobody missed anything, which was great. For the RTV survey, we now have only 7 delinquent clubs after last week's chasing, so another 2 had submitted their surveys, which is great news. And as I mentioned last week, what we have done in previous years is just made multiple attempts to get some dialogue going, and in absence of that we just put them on the same rate as they were before because we have no other reason to suspect that anything is any materially different. I will need to talk to our communications, our broadcast RTV director Alan McWatt, but I reckon we attempt it one more time this week, maybe this and next week, and then we just move on. And as I mentioned also last week, I am really looking forward to getting this one behind us, getting around the negotiating table with RTV and setting forth our payment plan for the year. So that will be another good thing done and dusted and in the books once we get there. For shout-outs, I have 2 special birthday wishes this week, but before I get to that, I wanted to provide everybody a bit of an update on Beth Reid from Bayou City Loyal's birthday from last week. She still hasn't gotten in touch to acknowledge the shout-out, so I can only assume that she's at least 2 episodes behind on the podcast that she said she listens to, which is a wee bit of a shame for her. I'll let you know next week if she reaches out between now and then we'll just keep accumulating this as we go forward until someone says, "Come on, Beth, just say something," and then we can move on. So for the first birthday, I'm very happy to wish a very happy 30th birthday to Victoria Serrell. Victoria's birthday was October the 2nd, so just 2 days ago. And in a special surprise for Victoria, her dad Hugh thought it would be best to have this birthday wish broadcast after a birthday to let her soak in the moment of easing into her 30s for just a little bit longer. I think that's such a staunch gesture, Hugh, and well done for thinking about that. And I'm absolutely sure that Victoria appreciates it now that it's been fully explained. And hopefully this explanation some way helps Victoria get over the fact that Hugh actually just forgot last week, and I'm having to pick up the pieces for him this week. But let's be fair and say, from this point forward, any significant event that anyone wants shouted out has a 2-week window where it can be mentioned a week before or a week after. Even if it's 2 weeks after, that doesn't matter. But there's a grace period of 2 weeks, let's just say, and it doesn't lose its sensational appeal and novelty that comes with being associated with hearing your name on a podcast. So let's do that. And Hugh, I hope you made up with the forgetting with some ample gifts for Victoria. Victoria, I hope you got spoiled big time. Happy birthday again. Secondly, a big happy 50th birthday to Calgary's very own Scotty Greaves, whose birthday was just yesterday. See, it can be this special and after the fact, like this one as well. Scott celebrated his birthday in San Francisco, watching his beloved 49ers unfortunately lose against their arch rivals, the Seattle Seahawks. I'm hoping that this particular trip was a bit more successful for Scott than the one that he and I had back in December 2014, which is another story for a future segment of this podcast entitled "What Happens on the Road Stays on the Road." Scotty was accompanied in San Francisco by Cambridge Rangers Supporters Club president Billy Fatkin Jr., who was also celebrating a birthday that is nowhere near as cool as 30 or 50, so I won't even mention the number, but happy birthday to both lads, and hopefully you enjoyed your weekend and made it home safe and sound. And finally, for the shout outs, I did want to mention the events that are forthcoming for the clubs here over the next wee while. Firstly, Toronto Number 1 have their Two for the show on Saturday the 6th of November at 7pm. Tickets $15 per person. Reach out to Norma Maxwell or visit the Toronto Number 1 Facebook page, which should be back up now. that Mark Zuckerberg has got his finger out, and Norma Maxwell will be able to help you out. And secondly, Bramley have their Queen concert organised for, I guess that's a week on Saturday, the same day as the Hearts game, at 7:30pm, featuring the Queen tribute band. The cost is $25, which gets you admission for the concert and raffles and door prizes and other auctions and stuff like that as well. And you can e-transfer your money for that to bramleyrangers@gmail.com, and I believe they still have their 50/50 going, and you can email transfer your money for the 50/50 to bramleyrangers55@gmail.com, or buy them at the premise as well. For our convention update this week, we're just about ready to launch our convention Facebook page. I was hoping it would have been last week. I did mention this on last week's pod, but we did have some final wee tweaks in the works to make it a thing of absolute beauty when we get it out there, and that will provide a more direct route for Facebook users to keep up to speed with what's happening as we move on to our more detailed and finite planning phases for the event. Maybe just as well, we never launched it. Say, for example, we launched it today so that I could announce it tonight, and then Facebook is lying on its arse because it's not working, and then we've got off to a ropey start. So maybe our endeavours to get it just so has actually helped us out on this one occasion. On the travel front, we are just working on our communications planning for that one, and you should hear something from us on that this week. And in fact, I'm going to guarantee you're going to hear something about that from us this week. I was hopeful it was going to be last week, and I think I did mention that last week, but our other convention and general NARSA work took a bit of precedent on that for this last week, so it will be this week. And as I also mentioned last week, there will be other benefits that we've managed to obtain through this partnership for NARSA members and friends of NARSA too, so please stay tuned and read the correspondence and communications when they come out. I'm sure they'll be interesting reading. And as we close in on our VIP guest list for the event, we are going to be using this podcast to help us bring them more to you, to help us generate a wee bit more buzz about the event and make it a little bit more personable as well. So when we have a guest formally confirmed, we'll announce it here and via our social media channels, and of course our email distribution lists as well. Then we'll have them on for a quick interview to chat about why they decided to come, why NARSA 2022, what's the attraction for Vegas, what they're most looking forward to, their favourite memory of me, and other great content like that. And I'm hopeful that before the end of this month that we'll be bringing you information and content from our first two guests that have confirmed. One at least I'm very, very confident about, and we'll see about the other one. So we have two confirmed guests. I'm saying more so when we'll be able to get the communications rocking and rolling for those as well. So we are getting there, and as I mentioned a number of weeks back, this is the fun stuff. This is the bits that gets people excited and generates a wee bit more interest, and it kind of starts to feel a bit more real, if that makes a bit sense. A sense that we're getting there, and the event is going to be, what is it now? It's actually, it's only it's 8 months away. Oh my word. Okay, so another regular plug for our frequently asked questions document. It's on our website. For any questions you have on the convention, you can go there, and of course you'll be able to visit the Facebook dedicated event page as well. Some things I wanted to mention on the communications front from this past week, starting with the announcement last week that the club are hosting a series of fan engagement drop-in sessions. Where they said, and this is quoted from the website, we will be hosting several drop-in sessions over the next month. These sessions are aimed at supporters who do not use social media or other digital platforms regularly, or feel the need to come in and discuss specific issues on a face-to-face basis. Sessions will be held in our newly refurbished Club 72 lounge, which is accessible from Argyle Reception, located in the Sandy Jardin stand. And the events, there was two last week. There was one on Wednesday and Thursday, the 29th and 30th of September. And there are another 4 planned for right now on Wednesday the 13th, Thursday the 14th, Tuesday the 19th, and Wednesday the 20th of October. All of those are 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And then it says, further dates will be announced in due course. The club reiterates its commitment to ensuring every supporter has the best possible experience and will continue to ensure we engage with supporters. Now, firstly, I'm in absolute 100% support of the club engaging in meaningful dialogue with the supporters, no question about it. And I think this is a great idea. However, this one struck a bit of a strange chord with me. My initial reaction was great. And then it changed to, why wasn't NARSA notified or requested to participate? Now, I appreciate that we are between 3,000 and 5,000 miles away from the drop-in sessions, but is there another communication vehicle that could have been used where we could have accessed key club personnel during the window of 12 to 2 p.m. UK that we would have been able to get some dialogue? Possibly, I don't know. What is it they actually want to talk about now? I know that it says that these are drop-in sessions, so, is it just more of a, there's no agenda? There's no problems they're trying to solve. I'm just not sure this is the right way. First and foremost, I just thought it was kind of ironic that is the right way to engage folks who don't use digital platforms to announce it on a digital platform. That they're actually going to do that. So stuff like that is kind of where I'm at. I think maybe just a wee bit differently than other people. But as I say, it does sound like a bit of an open house idea, which is great, and with no strict structure to it. But I've no real idea. I would have done some more research on it today and provided a wee bit of a better update tonight. But with WhatsApp being down, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't get a chance to engage with my club contacts as I would regularly do on a Monday. So I will endeavour to find out more about it this coming week, and we'll let everyone know next week. Even if it's not hugely material for NARSA, that's okay. But I'm more along the lines of provide a wee bit more information. Who's going to be there? Like what types and styles of questions are on the table or off the table? What's going to happen afterwards? That kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know. Just some logistics missing that I wouldn't have done if I was organising said events. But anyway, almost any fan engagement is more than welcome. I also wanted to provide a quick recommendation for those who like to listen to the Keys and Grey and DJ podcast, that in the week before last's episode, that not this past Friday, but the Friday before, they had some real staunch talk on there from Andy Gray about his time with Rangers. And I don't want to spoil any of the content for you, but it was one of these ones where you listen to it and you're like, oh man, that was great. That just gets the adrenaline pumping. And the special guest on that show was none other than Graham Roberts. I normally try to listen on a Friday or on the weekend, before recording this, but I just didn't last week. In fact, I didn't this week either. But I did check the guest, and it's not a Rangers connection for this week now. But which is why I didn't mention it last week. But if you're interested in that pod, if you like it, I know some people don't, but you should try and have a listen, as Andy's stuff that he talks about in terms of what Rangers means to him is amazing, and then listen to Graham's story of what happened in the events surrounding when he signed for us from Tottenham and how it all worked out. It's absolute gold dust. Very, very funny story. Once a Ranger, always a Ranger, and Graham Roberts certainly falls into that category. Rangers also provided an opportunity for fans to become part of history by getting involved in support of a forthcoming book called The Rangers Shirt Official History. I think this is such a novel idea to have the fans provide financial support to these great projects to make sure that they are going to go ahead and they're not going to lose money and things like that, and hopefully run at a profit, but also for the fans to get public recognition for these things as well, in being involved. There are two tiers of involvement in this. The one is a subscribers edition, which is £30, and for that you get the book and you get your name printed in the supporters list in the back of the book, and you get a unique subscribers edition jacket around the book. There's another basic edition, I can't remember what it's called, a regular edition. I guess sort of 3 editions that you can get, but the other one seems to be £30 as well, so I don't know why you would pay £30 for just a normal book and your name's not in it and you don't get a nice fancy cover, or pay £30 and get your name in the book and a nice fancy cover. Anyway, maybe that's just the way it's written on the site. And then the top tier is called a collector's edition, and for your £60 you'll get your name printed in the supporters list at the back of the book like you do with the subscribers edition, and you get a premium clamshell presentation box or something nice and fancy to keep it in, and a high quality photographic print signed by Rangers legend Colin Steen. So there's only going to be 500 collector's editions produced. So if that's something that you are interested in, I will put the article link in the blurb tonight. And if you're interested, go ahead and check it out and go through the process. I did so myself just earlier today. For overseas folks, know that there is shipping and stuff that adds a wee bit of extra cash on, but it was around about $140, $150 for me to get my subscription to the collector's edition, and I'm really looking forward to that. The book is going to be published in November, so you don't have to wait too long, and I imagine everyone will receive their books before Christmas as well. So something I think really unique and cool, and such a great way to kind of fund projects like that and have more fan engagement and involvement. Finally, I did want to briefly discuss that, if you haven't heard already, that VAR, the video assistant referee system, is maybe, just maybe, a step closer to being introduced in Scotland, with a brief meeting going to be held with the SFA and SPFL this coming Friday, with a special advisor and former English Premiership referee and of course World Cup final referee Howard Webb being part of the focus group, the advisory panel. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be structured, but on an article on Sky Sports, SFA Chief Exec Ian Maxwell had said VAR has been under discussion by the Scottish FA's Professional Game Board since its introduction into the laws of the game in 2018. Scottish football took the view that it was preferable to see the technology be refined, overcome inevitable teething problems, and naturally become more cost effective. VAR is here to stay, and in a short period of its implementation has advanced significantly, while its setup and maintenance costs have reduced. We are now at the point where we need to discuss and ideally agree on its introduction into Scottish football. The Scottish FA believes it's necessary for the evolution of our domestic game to provide additional support to our match officials and also to maximise their potential on domestic, European and international stages. So I wonder what VAR would have made of the Porteous assault tackle yesterday in the Hibs game. I guess we'll never know, but some positive news, there's been some discussion over the last wee while about safe standing areas and trying to create or regenerate different types of atmospheres at the game, and some support for our referees, because boy oh boy, some referees really, really need the support, would be a good thing, and the ability to catch up with the rest of the world. I remember watching some English Premiership games last year, and VAR was it couldn't have got in the way any more than it actually did. And this season, it's a lot more slick now. So good for Scotland for being typically frugal and taking a wee step back and having everyone else figure things out and iron out all the creases, and then maybe step in and see what we can do. No other information other than that to report right now. If I hear any more, I will certainly let you know. So that'll do it for this week, my friends. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and please do share it with anyone else you think might be interested in listening. And until next week, which will be recorded on Canadian Thanksgiving Monday, please do take care of yourselves. All the very best. Cheerio.